Hi everyone, welcome to JavaTechie. In this tutorial, I will guide you how to write proper integration test for your REST API. Okay, alright. Before we directly jump into the code, let me tell you why do we need integration test or what is the importance of writing this integration test before push your code to the production server. Let me walk you through one example. Let's assume I got a requirement to develop a new API. So I write my controller layer, service layer and database layer. If you observe in the code, I have the controller layer, I have the service layer and I have the database layer. In controller layer, I just expose one API to add a product object. User will give me the product object. Then I'll just save that to the database. Okay. So I designed the API. Now next I need to test this particular API from the postman, right? Even I started my server. Now let me go to the postman. I'll just add this entry. Okay, just click on send. The record inserted with ID 3. Now if you will go and verify in your database, which is application database, let me fire this command. You can see here there is 3 record. Now, if you observe to test whether my API flow is working or not, or the request is going from the controller to the service, then from service to repo or not, I am adding useless entry to my application database. Since this record 3 is the test data, still I am adding that as part of my application database while testing the API, which is really a bad approach, isn't it? Now you might have a question, hey, how can I test flow of my API begin from the web layer to the database layer? That is where integration test came into the picture. In integration test, from test case itself, you can send request to the API. It should go through all the 3 layers and come back with a response, and this response will be asserted accordingly the expectation of the API. In this integration test approach, you can use embedded H2 database. Rather than using the application database, you can use H2 database so that your test data won't be pushed to your application database. So this is really an easy way you can verify flow of your API without touching any application component. That's why integration tests always play a key role in ensuring the quality of the application. Okay, so let's quickly write integration test for our REST API. So let's get started. So here already I created one CRUD application to save our time, because our primary goal here to understand how to write integration test for our REST API. Okay, if anyone not aware about how to write Spring Boot CRUD application, I will share the video link in the description. You can refer that. Okay, so I created the CRUD here. You can see the post mapping, get mapping, then put mapping and delete mapping. All the create, delete, update and retrieve, all the 4 CRUD operation is there. Okay, before we write the integration test, first let me test this API whether it is working or not. Let me go to the postman. I will try the post request to save the product. So I can go to the body, let's say laptop. Okay, let's click on the send. The record got inserted. Now I'll just do the get. Okay, so to get all the products, let me go and check the URL. Get mapping will point to the root URL / products. Go to the postman and just trigger this. You will find the 4 record here. Okay, now I will just filter out a record by ID. So I can give the URL here, ID1, send the request. You can see only ID1. Now let's say I just want to update ID1 or the product whose ID equal to 1. So let me check the URL, update, then give the ID and also give the product which you want to update. So I'll just go to the postman. The ID for this laptop is 5, right? I'll give 5. Then the method type will be put, and then I just want to update the price. Let me update it to 70,000. Okay, now click on send. Okay, what is the, okay, I gave the wrong URL, /update. Click on send. Okay, let me check the URL. It is update only, right? Let me copy this, go to the postman. Let me paste it. Now send the request. Yeah, you can see here it got updated. Now you can get that to verify. You can get it. Fine, it got updated. Now I just want to delete the product. So I can delete based on the ID, I believe. Yeah, delete, then give the ID. So let me copy the URL, go to the postman, delete, then I will give the ID as 5. This particular record I want to delete. Change the HTTP method type is delete, then send the request, product removed whose ID equal to 5. Now if you'll check all the products, you'll get only 3. Change it to the get. You can get only 3 record, right? Because one we just deleted. It means all the CRUD API what we have exposed here is working as expected. Now we need to write the integration test for each HTTP method: post, get, put and delete. Okay. So to start with the integration test, you need to go inside the test folder. You can see here inside src there is two folder, main and test. Go inside the test, you can find a folder called Java. Then inside that you can find this class, and this class will be annotated with @spring boot test, and this particular @spring boot test annotation which loads the actual application context. Okay. So here you also need to specify the web environment and random port. You can tell to the Spring Boot while executing the integration test, start my application context with this random port. Okay. So you can define that inside this annotation. You can write web environment, then you can specify Spring Boot test dot web environment dot random port. Okay. So here simply we are telling to the Spring Boot while bootstrapping the application context, just run with the random port. And also I want that port. How can I get it? I can define a variable called private int port. Then there is an annotation called @local server port. Okay. By defining this annotation, you can get the port reference where your application context is running. Now next, from this test class or from this test case, I want to access the actual API which I define in my controller package or controller folder. Fine. So I just need to define the root URL, or you can consider this as a base URL. So I'll just define something private string base URL. I can copy it from the postman. This is what my base URL. Fine. So here I cannot specify the port number because we just specify random port, so that my application context will start on the random port. So I can remove this. Better I will keep up to localhost. Then we'll build based on our API call. Now I just need to call the API. Okay. So these are the API I need to call from my test class. So there is a class called test REST template. You can use that. If not, you can directly use the REST template. Okay. So for this example, I will just use the REST template. If you are using Spring Web Flux, then you can use the test web client as well. So for now, just use the REST template. Both are same, guys. REST template and test REST template. Test REST template will just used as part of your test case only. But at end or under the hood, they both are consuming the API. So what I will do, I will just initialize this REST template. So I will just create a class public void public static void init, something like that. I will keep this as a static. Then I will just create REST template equal to new REST template. Fine. I will just annotate here. Before run all the test case, just initialize this REST template object. That is why I just annotate here @before all. Okay. Now I need to build the base URL based on the API call. So what I can do, I'll just write a method public void setup or something like that. Okay, so here I'll just define base URL equal to base URL. I will just concat the other attributes. So the first localhost, after localhost there will be a colon, right? I will just add it, then I will just specify concat, which is nothing. I'll give the port here. Okay, after port I will just give a empty space. Then I will just do, you can also use the string buffer or builder, but let's do it in the string only. So here I can give the root URL is products, and before each request I want to build this particular base URL. So I can annotate before each. Okay, so this before all and before each, these are I can say JUnit5 annotation. So before running each test case it will execute this, or before running all test case it will execute this. That's why the name itself self-explanatory. Okay, so we are just building the base URL, which is HTTP localhost, then we are adding the colon, then we are giving port, and we are giving this. So we created the base URL and we initialize the REST template. Now we are good to consume the API from our controller. But before consume, as I mentioned, I don't want to use the application database which I am using here. If you check in application, I am using MySQL. But I don't want to do that. I just want to use the H2 database. So make sure to add the H2 as a dependency in this your pom.xml. Then next step, inside this you need to create a folder called resource. Okay, inside test, I believe it should be inside test only, right? Fine, inside test just create a folder called or directory resources. Inside these resources I will create a file called application.properties. Then just define the H2 related configuration. I just want to enable the H2 console, and this is where the data source URL of my H2, and here I just want to show you the query fired in the test case. That is why I just show SQL true, and I just want to format it. You can ignore these two lines if you don't want to see the query in your console. Okay, now we are good. What is the next step? Next we'll just write a test case for this add product. Okay, where we'll just give a product object and then we'll save it to the DB, and it will save in our H2 database since we configured the H2 database for our test case. Okay, so what I'll do to verify whether record is getting inserted to H2DB or not, what I will do, I will just create a test repository class here which will point to the H2 database. So I will just create an interface. I will name it test H2 repo. Okay, you can extend it from JPA repository, point the object as a product, then data type of your primary key is integer. That's fine. I can remove this. Fine. Now I just need to inject this test H2 repository in my test class so that whatever the operation I will perform, I can directly verify in my H2 database only. Okay. So I'll just use private just add H2 repo. Fine. I can use auto add. So yeah, we are good with the H2 setup for our test scope. Now I will just write a method public void test add product. Okay, this is what the method, and this method need a argument as a product object. So we'll just create a product object, product equal to new product. I'll just give name. I'll give something like headset. Quantity I'll set to. Price I'll keep it 7,999. So we created the product object. Now next I just need to call the controller method, this particular method, post mapping method, from my test class, right? So how I can do that? We have the REST template dot get, sorry, this will be post, right? Post for object. You can give the URL. URL is nothing. You can give the base URL, because the base URL will be formed like HTTP localhost, then the port where my test application is running, then slash products. This is where the post we tried, right? Localhost 9191, then products. So the base URL is correct. I can go with this particular URL. Now the request is nothing, the product object which I created, and the response type, it will return the product.class. Fine. Now once it will insert, you will get the ID, because now we don't have ID here, right? So I'll just define something like post for object. No, I'll just keep response. Then what? How can I assert it? I can write something assert equals. I'll just expected the name should be headset, which I'm going to insert, and the actual I can get from this response, right? After save it to the DB dot get name. Also you can do, or you can validate another way. After this product, creating this product object and call the add product from the controller using this REST template, it should add a single product object to the database, which is the H2 database, right? So I can do something like assert equals expected 1, then check what is the record count in your DB. I can get that from the H2 repo dot find all dot size. That's fine, right? By inserting this particular product object, we are validating in two ways. We are checking the name should be headset, which is inserted in the DB, and also we are validating whether only one record is inserted to the DB or not. So I simply annotate here at the rate test. That's fine. Now I believe we are good. Let me run this API, or else I will also show you with the debug mode. Okay. I don't know which one is running. Just stop it. I'll just show you in the debug mode. Let me go to the controller so that you can get the clarity that from the test the flow will go to your controller, and from the controller the request will go to the service, the way you are calling your API. Okay, it will go to the service, then from service it will go to the repo or DAO layer. Fine. Let me start it in the debug mode. It will take few seconds. So you can see here debugger is on now. Now I'll just simply resume it. Let me add a breakpoint here as well. Just click on resume program. You can see the request came to your controller class. This is what the controller add product method, right? From the controller, the way we are calling the service, again it will pass to the service. You can see here, this is where in service now. Then from service, it will go to the repo. So I'm not going there. I will just go to my test. I will just add a breakpoint here, and I will just pass it. Now you can see here, after save this response, we got the ID3. I don't know how it generated the ID3. It inserted in the DB. I'll verify the next step. You can verify h2 repo find all.size. Why there is 3? I don't understand. Okay, what we'll do, we'll check the entry. Book mobile. Okay, just give me a second. Let me go to the main class, because at the time of application startup we are inserting something, right? ID1 book mobile. Okay, let me cross verify that. Go to the project, go to the main class, book 1 mobile. Okay, that is correct. So you can see here. Let's evaluate again. I'll just want to confirm whether those are the two records getting inserted before it or not. price is 299349. Let me verify. 299, correct. So on application startup we are inserting two entry, fine. So that is why even though you are starting the Spring test application context, still it will load your main class. So that is fine. So it should be 3 then now. Or to for your confirmation, what I will do, I will stop this. I will also comment this piece of code. I don't want to insert anything at the time of application startup. You can now go. I will not debug it now. I will simply run this test case. Now you will find one will be in your H2 repo, so that this asset will be passed now. Let's see. It will take few seconds. You can see here this is succeed, and to show you that it is actually hitting your DB, which is H2 DB, I just added this. Call the next value from the Hibernate sequence, insert into product table. This is what it inserted in our H2 DB. Okay, select product 0 this. So whatever the value you added, if you will verify in your application database, that you won't get it. See here, I am getting only 3 record. Whatever the headset I am adding, that is not there in my application server. Hence it proved whatever the Hibernate statement insert or select is executing on your H2 context, and your test case is succeed. It means all the layer controller, service and repo is working as expected. That is what we are asserting here. Fine. Now next move to the next scenario, where we'll just check for the find all the products from the DB. So for this particular API, we are going to write the integration test now. So let me minimize everything. Go to your test case. Then I'll just simply write a method public void test get products. Okay. So inside this test get products, first let me annotate here at the rate test. Now next, I need to add some entry to the DB, so that while calling the find all method or while invoking my API get all, it should return the number of record present in my DB. So before execute this particular method, I want to execute some SQL statement. So for that there is an annotation called SQL, and you can provide the statement which you want to execute. I will give something like this. Insert into the product table ID name quantity price. This is what the entry I am going to insert it. Okay, and when I want to insert it, you can also specify the execution phase, which is SQL after test method or before test method. Okay, so before execute this test method, just execute this statement where I'm just inserting one object or one element to my H2 database, and same I will validate in this test get all or test get products. Okay, so what I will do here, REST template dot get for object, give the URL which is base URL, and the response type it will return me the list.class. Okay, now what I'll do, I'll just get the response type which will be list of object, list of product. Now I can assert with this product size, because I only inserting one element to the DB at the time of this particular test startup. Okay, so what I can do, assert equals expected is 1, and then I can directly use the this particular H2 repo, right? I can validate in the DB itself, H2 repo dot find all dot size, or this will also return the same. I'll just add two assert statement. I can use this product dot size as well, because this particular method is nothing, this particular endpoint which will fetch list of product from the DB. It means this particular return type will also fetch from the DB, right? That is why I am adding the two assert statement here. Let me format it. And once this particular entry inserted before test method, I also want to delete it. So what you can do, SQL Then you can write a statement. I'll write something like delete from table name. I'll give something like where. I'll give something like name equal to what is that, SC, right? Name equal to SC, and I want this execution phase should be after this test case. Okay, execution phase SQL after test method. So before test method I just want to insert it, and after I'm done with my test execution I don't want anything with that particular object. I'm telling to this test please delete that record. Okay, that is where I'm giving the a delete statement. So that's fine, I believe. Now let me directly run it. Okay, because already I shown you like by debugging how the flow is going from controller to service, service to repo. So there is nothing to explain. Let me run it. If we'll get any error, then we'll debug it further. I'll directly run for now. So I believe this statement is clear, right? We are only inserting one object to the DB while executing this test get products, and I'm validating that whatever the record I'm inserting, whether it is giving me the correct size or not. So let's wait it to complete. Yeah, you can see here it fired the select query and it is giving only one result because only one we are just inserting. Fine. Now let's move to the next API, which will be get the single product object by ID. Okay, so there is something called filter condition based on the ID. Let me go to the test case. For each API we are just writing the integration test, guys. Don't be confused with the method signature. Okay, this is what the API we are going to write the integration test for this. For understanding I will copy the same method name. Okay, you can give any name. Let me minimize this. I'll write a method public void. I'll give something like test find product by ID. Okay, I'll keep this capital. Now if you check in the controller, we are just giving a single ID. Based on that it will fetch from the DB. Okay, so in our DB we don't have anything now because this is the H2 DB, so we don't have anything now. I will also use the same. I will also insert something and I can validate that. Going forward all the method I will use these two statement, guys, because for this particular scope I want to insert something. Okay, now if I'll add some SQL data.sql or schema.sql, that will be always there in my H2 DB. So that is why I just specify for each method segment only. Okay, while executing this method do these two job. I don't want to keep unnecessary info in my H2 as well. So what I'll do, I'll just give some different value. Let's say ID will be 1, this will be car, something like that, and quantity is 1, like this. Okay, before test method I also want to delete that. I will keep where ID equal to 1. Fine. Now here I know that ID is 1 will going to insert in this particular table, product table. Now I can validate that directly. I have the ID with me. I can do find by ID the input which is 1. So to access that I just need to call this particular method, right? This particular method. So to do that what I can do, I will just use REST template dot get for object. I'll give the URL. Uh, I can directly give the URL as a base URL. Then response type it will return me a single object, right? Product dot class. And URI variable we have something called 1, that is what I'm inserting. So I just need to provide the URL properly. I need to specify the ID as well, and this particular path variable I'm giving as a URI variable. It will return me the object of product local variable. I'll name it product only. So what I can do now, I'll just use assert all. Inside this assert all I can directly use the lambda. The first assert I want to check assert not null, not null actually. the object which I am getting from the DB, which is product. Fine. Then I will just validate its ID because the ID I am giving here. So I can add the second statement, assert equals expected one. Okay, I don't know why it's okay. Assert equals expected one. That is where the product dot get ID. Why this is crying? Just add a comma. Just remove it. That's it. Whenever you want to execute multiple assert statement, you can keep inside assert all, and if you see the method signature of assert all, it is taking something called executable. Okay, so you can pass multiple assert statement. Now I believe we are good. We are just inserting this particular object and we are giving this ID1 and we are trying to fetch the value. Okay, let me add few more assert statement. I will also want to check the name of it. So name will be, we are giving car, right? Get name. Fine. Now let me run this. You can also see here it will fire the select statement based on the ID. Yeah, the test is succeed. And if you see here, select star from this where product ID equal to this. That is what the exact API call what we are doing, right? If you'll go on the product controller and if you'll go this get product by ID method, this is what we are doing, repository find by ID. That is what we can see here. Fine. So we are done with the integration test for post and get. Now the tricky part for update and delete will perform. Go to the product controller. You can see here while updating we are giving the product object and the ID. Based on this ID we are fetching object from the database, and then whatever the new value we are giving, we are just setting that to the existing value. Okay, that is what the update operation we are doing. If you will check in the update product logic, we are getting the existing product object present in the DB, then we are just setting the new value to this existing product object. So for that what I can do, I will just write a integration test method. I'll write something like public void test update product. Fine. Now I'll just add at the rate test. To update something, I need to add one entry to the DB, right? As I mentioned before, for all the method I'm going to use these two statement. I just want to execute my own SQL statement. See, already if you'll go and check in my resource test folder, I have the data.sql and schema.sql for the test, but I'm not using it. Okay, because I want H2 to be create the table for me, not by me. I can use this data.sql, I can import it, but let's add the entry for a method execution. So I can ignore it for now. If you want, you can directly import this data.sql and schema.sql and you can perform it. So for now, just ignore it. I'll just add this, insert into the product table. I'll give something like ID will be 2, value will be something like shoes, price is let's say 999, and I will just update the price to some different number. Let's do that. So what I will do, first I will create a product object because that is the new value which I want to insert it, okay, or which I want to update it. Just copy this syntax. I will create the product object with the same, okay. Value will be, name will be shoes, quantity is 1. Now in DB I have this shoes quantity 1, price 999, right? I will just make it 1999. This particular field I want to update. That is why I am giving the product as a input product object. If you will check in your controller, we are giving the product object which you want to update in your DB based on this ID, right? So what I will do now, I will just do something like REST template dot put, because I want to update something. Okay, so if you observe here, I just need to give the base URL, and in the base URL I just need to append update, then I just need to append the ID will be 2, right? So the request which I am giving is product, okay, and then the variable which I am giving is ID 2. So here simply we are telling for this 2 ID 2 get the existing product object from the DB, then map this new value to that particular product object. Fine. Now what I will do, after I update this, I will get it from the DB that whether it is really updated or not. So I can do something like h2 repository dot find by ID. ID will be 2, or what is the ID? Yeah, 2 here. Then this will return me the optional get that object, map it uh, product from DB or something like that. Okay. Now what I need to do, I will assert multiple statement again. I will copy this. So this should not be null from the DB, and what we are expecting, the price should be updated in the DB, right? So the expected is this, and what we are getting from the DB, you can map it. Product from DB dot get price. Rest other fields are good because we are not changing them. You can directly remove the third statement. So this I can debug you and I can show you that, because this is update something not complex we cannot say, but it's bit tricky actually. Okay, so let me run this in a debug mode. Let me debug this. Also I will go and add the debugger in the service as well. We'll add here. Let it run first, then you can add the debugger. Okay, go inside this method, just add the debugger here. So debugger came here to the test class. Before I execute, I just want to show you that h2 repo dot find all, there should be one record because we are only inserting here. You can see here ID2 name source quantity is 999 here, which is there in my DB, because that is what we are just inserting here from the SQL statement. Fine, close it. Then I just want to update the price to 1999. Now just continue the breakpoint. Now when you do this REST template dot put base URL, and then you are giving slash update slash ID, this is what the particular entry you want to update. The request will immediately goes to your controller class. You can see here the product object which you are giving to update, and the ID based on that what you want to fetch from the DB. Now you can understand once we will go to the service. Okay, simple statement here. From the service, based on the product ID what you are giving, it will fetch from the database. Now let me continue here. We'll get the existing product from the DB. The price is 999, 2 shoes, quantity 1, 999. Okay. Now whatever the new value I am giving as part of this product object, I am just setting it to the existing product object which I got from the DB. That's it. Just pass it. It will again save. Now if you'll check, okay, I'll directly pass it, then I can show you that statement. If you'll check it now, the price got updated 1999. Okay, again if I want I can show you that as well. h2 repo dot find all. Now if you'll check from the DB, the object price got changed 1999, and this is what we are also doing the same here. Fine. Now this should not be null because we can see the value here, and the price what we expected is got updated here. So I can simply pass it. Now go and check in your console. It should fire the update query in your h2 DB. See here, it fired the update query, right? Update this price quantity where ID equal to this. So I believe you understand this put mapping integration test. This is something like in JPA we don't have anything straightforward for update, but save will act as a update. You need to get the existing object, then you just modify with the new value and save it. That is how update will work in case of Spring Data API. Okay, now we are good. Now let's move to the next or the last API, which is the delete API. For this we are going to write the integration test now. So I'll just write a method here, public void test delete product. Fine. I'll just annotate here @test. Then next, what I'll do, I'll just copy this method. I will only add the entry or object to the table, but I will not delete it. I want to delete that through the API. Okay, that is why the second execution phase after test method, I don't want to delete it. I didn't added that statement. So here what I can do, I can do something like, let me get it from the h2 repo dot find all dot size. You will find the record count, int record count. It will give you the 1 because I am adding here, right? So I'll just assert that statement. I'll just copy this. I'm expecting one record in my DB record count. Now I will just call the delete. After delete, the record count should be 0 because only one record I have. So I can do something like REST template. Yeah, REST template dot delete. You give the URI, which is base URL. Then I need to append delete. Then I need to append the ID, and that ID I need to pass here, which is let me see 2, right? Or I'll just change it to the something like 8. I'll change some value to the books 5 book, price is 1499, something like that. Some new record I'm going to add. Okay, now I'll give the ID. The ID whose ID is 8, I want to delete that object from my DB. Now after delete, this count should be 0. So I will directly use h2 repo because again I need to fire from the DB, right? Find all dot size. Now it should be 0. That's it. Let me add a breakpoint here so that I can prove that it is deleting the record which is there in our DB. And this is what the record I am inserting on test case started. So let me debug this. It will take few seconds. So request came to the breakpoint. Now if you evaluate this statement, you will find 1 because one record is there in our DB. And that is what the books which we are inserted just now. Now let me close this. So the first assert statement should be passed now. We are good. Now it will just delete the record. Okay. After this delete, now if you verify h2 repo.find all, you will get 0. That's correct, right? Because we are deleting the entry which is there in our DB. So it got succeed here. Pass it, and if you'll see in the console, it should, you can see here, delete from the table where ID equal to this. It means the request when we just did REST template dot http method get post put delete, the request is going to the controller, then from controller it is going to the service, and from service it is going to the DB. That is how we can see this DB statement, guys. You can see here all the DB statement we are seeing here. So this is how you can write proper integration test for all the REST API which is there as part of your controller, and you can test it from the test case itself. You don't need to hit your API to test your endpoint. Okay, you can done that using this particular integration test. So this is the simple, because if you observe in our controller, we don't have any complex logic, guys. We are just taking the object, we are just saving it. We don't have any validation, or we don't have core business logic here. But if you have complex logic, then you may need to write all the validation as a separate test case. Okay, so do let me know in the comment section if you guys have any doubt regarding this integration test. I'll share this GitHub link in video description. You guys can refer this source code. That's all about this particular video, guys. Thanks for watching this video. Meet you soon with a new concept.